Hello, everyone. Welcome to Saturday's edition of Weekend Waypoints, a production of SEC Extra and D1Baseball.com. Joe Healy here to take you through Friday's action around the SEC, which included 3 nail-biting one-run games. Also going to get you ready for Saturday's action around the league. But before I do that, and before we do anything here, I have to remind you that today's edition of Weekend Waypoints and every edition of Weekend Waypoints is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Get ready for a new season of fishing fun with Academy Sports and Outdoors, and reel in the best gear at low prices every day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders. All right, fun Friday around the SEC. A lot of close games, some not, but some wild finishes. Had a go-ahead home run in a ninth inning, had a go-ahead dropped pop-up in the ninth inning in a game, had an old-fashioned pitcher's duel. So we'll get to all of that. Moonshine in the comments says, hit the like button for Joe. Thank you, Moonshine. You're a good guy. You're always reminding people. Yeah, whatever it is. If you're watching on YouTube, give a thumbs up or a like or whatever it is. Moonshine also says, Texas A&M baseball team will be ranked next week, asking for a friend. And then Daniel Ordoy says, ranked to the top 100. Yeah, the struggles continue for Texas A&M. We will certainly talk about that as our show goes on here. All right, let's take a look at the scoreboard here. I'm going to present my screen. There we go. All right. So there you can see, like, first of all, it looks great. We could fit all the games on the last couple of weeks. It's been nice that all the games fit kind of neatly there without having to scroll up and down. A lot of close games. I mean, really just, Arkansas, South Carolina, obviously LSU, Texas got a little out of hand. But other than that, I mean, a lot of close games, a lot of interesting games, some tense moments around the league last night. Can't ask for a whole lot more. Let's get to our game of the day. And I'll be honest with you, I have 3 games of the day. Sue me, So we're going to talk about Mississippi State 2, Oklahoma 1, Auburn 8, Kentucky 7, Georgia 8, Florida 7 in succession here. We're going to start with Mississippi State and Oklahoma. We'll pull up the box score here so we can appreciate some of what this game was. So a good effort on the mound for Kyson Witherspoon, as you see here. Just ended up giving up 2 runs, only one of which was earned, struck out 11, but ultimately was not enough when, as we scroll here, Pico Khan, 6 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts of his own to outduel Kyson Witherspoon. And this is just an old school Friday in the SEC type of pitcher's duel, which we love to see. So that was awesome. I think that, the folks in Norman got a good taste of what Fridays in the SEC are like, where you get a great outing from your pitcher and you feel 10 out of 10 times you take that start from Kyson Witherspoon and expect to most likely win that game. And you just don't, because he got outdueled, right, by a guy who was really throwing it well. So that's life there. You see the scoring here. I mean, for Mississippi State, infield single for Bryce Chance and a sac fly for Dylan Cupp, but that's all you needed in this case because the pitching was so good. So fun stuff there. Got some comments waiting, so I'll go to those before we talk about our next game here. Let's see. Joshua Davis says Hogs curb stomp the Gamecocks. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. Carl Dunn, good morning. The best game LSU has played this year so far. Yeah, hard to argue with that. I mean, quality of opponent, the fact that it was a relatively routine win. You got good offensive performances. You got a good start on the mound. Great relief work. We'll talk about both of those things. Kobe Walker says, love watching your show. Thank you, Kobe. I appreciate that. Sean Miller says, morning, Joe. I can't say good morning any longer given how this season is going. Yeah, Sean Miller, noted A&M guy. Yeah, sorry, Sean. Like, it's just been a tough start. A lot of baseball left. You have to readjust your expectations for this A&M team, but nobody's out here saying they can't, be a postseason team and at least give you a little bit of postseason baseball, even though it probably is, not satisfactory in the end. Nicholas Doherty asks, as of right now, who would be your top 5 teams in the SEC? I'd have to give that some. I mean, I would probably just defer to the rankings on that, Nicholas, without having to really like think about it and analyze it. I'll say this: like, I think Tennessee and LSU. There's like Tennessee and LSU, and there's like a little gap, and then I think there's probably Arkansas, and then there's a bigger gap. I like those two top teams better than any others, but then with the way Arkansas is swinging the bats right now, like I think they're more dangerous in a lot of ways than we anticipated. So those three certainly. And then I'd have to think about 4 and 5 on that, because then you start to get into teams that have some shortcomings, right? And it's just a matter of who I believe in moving forward. Good morning, vis-a-vis. I see your good morning there. Carl Dunn says, I feel that Anderson has the Friday night game locked down as of now. Yeah, I think that's right, especially given that Shores and Ianson, it's been like a little dicier with those guys. So I think you're right there. Joshua Davis says, SEC baseball talk, best way to start a Saturday. Thanks, Joe, and thank you, Mr. Davis, for joining us today. A lot of fun doing this. I love the back and forth, the comments, things like that. All right, let's get to the second of our 3 games of the day. Again, you can hold that against me if you don't want 3 games a day, but they were 3 really fun games. Like, a lot of interesting stuff happening. We're going to talk Georgia 8, Florida 7 next. Let's skip to the end here, because the big blow was a Rylan Zaborowski 2-run home run to give Georgia the lead in the top of the 9th, Florida leading 7-6. I had to do that math in my head, and for some reason that was hard, subtracting 2 runs from 8. Alex Philpott on the mound, who's been one of the guys for Florida this year, and Zaborowski just beats him. A slider that got too much of the plate. Zaborowski deposits it's over by the bullpen in left center. What a season he's having. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Like, he's been a real pleasant surprise for me. I thought he'd have a role to play, but I did not necessarily have him pegged as the Georgia transfer who was going to have the biggest impact. I mean, I guess Robbie Burnett's also in that discussion, but arguably the biggest impact for the Bulldogs this season. He's been arguably the best power hitter in the country so far this season. So impressive at bat there for him to come through in that moment. The pitching for both sides, frankly, Aiden King took his lumps again, but kind of really for the first time this year for Florida. That's going to happen. That was always going to happen at some point. I'm confident he'll bounce back. And for Georgia, it's Charlie Goldstein, another relatively short start, another game in which they had to piece things together. Ended up working out. They win the game, and this is the SEC. You're going to have to win ugly. So kudos there. But Georgia's still kind of scrambling for things on the mound, and Brian Curley is getting the start today, Saturday. We'll see how long. I mean, I'm assuming that's going to be an opener situation, but I think it's at a point now with Wes Johnson where it's just like, hey, we're just going to go to our best arms right away. And if they give us 3 outs, okay. If they give us 6 or 9, even better. But we're just going to put our best guys, the guys we trust right now, out there, and then see what happens after that. And hard to blame them, given that it seems like there's not a whole lot they can trust on the mound right now, which is confounding. And if you haven't heard my episode of Highway to Hoover with Anthony Dasher, who covers Georgia for UGAsports.com, go back and listen to that episode, because we covered the pitching at length and what was going on there. So they come out with a win, big win for Georgia. Florida still winless in SEC play. I'm not worried about them the same way I'm worried about A&M. However, when you combine the hole they're in, plus some of the injury stuff, which now, of course, includes Liam Peterson, supposedly it's just precautionary, but we'll have to see. So when you combine the slow start with those injuries, you do start to kind of be a little concerned about, are they just going to be able to dig themselves out of this? So again, I don't worry about them the same way I worry about A&M, but that doesn't mean no worry, because I think there should be a little bit of concern there. So, all right, let's go to our last game of the day here. That is Auburn 8, Kentucky 7. Similar game in a lot of ways, right down to the fact that Kentucky was leading 7-6 in the 9th inning. And then a couple things. Big RBI double for Chase Fralick to tie the game. And then, you just feel for him. Tyler Bell had a nice game offensively for Kentucky. Just a routine pop on the infield. Takes his eye off it, I guess. 2 outs too, by the way. So if he makes the catch here, if he squeezes it, they go to extras. Instead, it doinks off his glove and lands harmlessly. Auburn scores a run and takes the lead. That's just a tough break, right? For a freshman who's been so good this season, has lived up to kind of that expectation that comes with where he was drafted over the summer. And to have a moment like that just stinks. And he'll bounce back from that, but man, that has to be a lonely feeling, and just especially at home, where you could feel maybe the stadium deflate a little bit there. But Kentucky did a lot of things right. 13 hits. I talked about before on Friday's edition of this show, like I want to see how real Kentucky's offensive performance was. I mean, was it just that they were playing in Athens and that's a hitter-friendly ballpark? I mean, that's part of it, but they score 7 runs on 13 hits. You're going to assume that's going to get the job done a lot of the time. It almost did today. It just didn't. So kudos to Auburn, though, for the never say die attitude. Also key for Auburn, Ike Irish returned, didn't catch, but was in right field, was back in the lineup. Obviously, that's huge for them to have him back in some capacity, even if it does take some time for him to get back to catching or feeling totally himself. Huge to have him back. Wasn't the prettiest pitching game for Sam Dutton for Auburn. He was fine. He worked through some stuff early, but I think it's just more about this Kentucky team seems pretty decent offensively. I think that's more what it's about. But obviously, Dutton will face a lot more offenses similar and better than this Kentucky offense moving forward. So he'll have to make some adjustments as time goes on. All right. Let's talk hitter and pitcher of the day here. A lot of good candidates, especially on the hitter side. It was a reasonably offensive day here. So, but first, let's get to Colwood's question. Is it time to panic about the Ole Miss bullpen? I guess it's hard for me to answer panic because I guess it depends on your expectation going into the year. I didn't necessarily see Ole Miss's bullpen as being kind of in like that upper tier on paper coming into the season. I like some of the individual pieces, right? But I didn't see it in the same way I saw some of these other bullpens having lots of, like an LSU where you just really like the depth of that group. So from that standpoint, I just think this is kind of maybe what you're going to get a little bit with the Ole Miss bullpen. They're going to have their days. They're going to have days where they're not as good. So I think that's more of where I'm at with Ole Miss's bullpen, but I understand the concern, right? What I would also tell you is that like Missouri seems frisky offensively. You were playing in Columbia. So, and Ole Miss got to win. So, you know what, if you're going to have those games where you feel kind of nervous about the bullpen, but you end up winning, you just kind of take that and run in this league. So, I do understand the concern. I guess my expectations were relatively moderate, I guess, for the Ole Miss bullpen. So I'm not panicked about it. I just think that this maybe is a little bit of a shortcoming, perhaps in the big picture. But again, if you continue to win some games, and they very nearly won that series with Arkansas, which is a team that looks very good right now, and you're off to a good start this weekend in terms of the wins and losses, like you'll just take that and try to tinker along the way and see if it gets any better. But it's certainly a good question. Mahiva Aloy is so much improved this year, and he was good last year. Agree, Josh. Like just a much better hitter. He looks more physical too. Like he looks like physically just stronger, more mature. I think that's part of it. But yeah, he walk-off home run, walk-off because it was a walk-off, but it was a 10-run rule walk-off against South Carolina. And then Josh Davis says, "Oh, sorry, it moved there." Joshua Davis, Davalon is the best pure hitter Arkansas has had for years. That very well could be true. I mean, he's certainly a very good pure hitter, and that brings me. That's a very good segue. It's almost like Josh Davis is my producer here, which he is not, but. Hitter of the day. This is my very high-tech Google Doc here. A lot of production quality happening right here. And you see Charles Davalon is my hitter of the day. 4 for 5 with a double, 3 runs scored. He's one of 3 hitters in the Arkansas lineup batting better than 400 right now. The other 2 are the Aloy brothers. So, he's a honorary Aloy, I suppose you could say. But another huge game for him. 4 for 5 as Arkansas run ruled South Carolina. Other candidates here, Rylan Zaborowski, we talked about him. Luke Heyman, 2 for 4 with a triple and a home run. I did not see the triple live, but it's hard for me to imagine Luke Heyman hitting a triple. If someone saw it live and wants to describe how that happened in the comments, please feel free to do so. But 2 for 4 with a triple and a home run. Tyler Bell talked about the drop pop-up, but offensively was a good day for him. 3 for 4 with a double. Devin Burks, 2 for 4 with a home run. I mostly put him on here because I wanted to remember to mention that, last year was a tough year for Burks offensively. He was the team leader, was the heartbeat of that team going to Omaha. So it wasn't a bad year overall, obviously, but offensively, he just never really got going. He just kind of felt like he never found a stride offensively, but he's swinging the bat well right now, hitting over 300, showing some pop. So good game for him in what's been a good season so far for him. Chase Fralick for Auburn, 2 for 4 with a double. That was a clutch double, tied the game up in the 9th inning. Jackson Lovich for Missouri, part of how Missouri has been a little bit better offensively. I'm not saying that they're a great lineup or even a good one, but they are better than they were last year, at least through the first couple weeks of SEC play. Jackson Lovich is a big part of that, 3 for 5 with a home run. Isaac Humphrey for Ole Miss, 2 for 4 with a home run and 4 runs batted in as it survived getting got at in Columbia, Missouri, which is, it's not the easiest place to play. Just because Missouri, has not won a lot of games overall in the SEC since joining doesn't mean that's not a hard place to play. It definitely is, especially if it's windy and cold and all that stuff. Hunter Inslee for Tennessee in a 10-7 win over Alabama to even that series up. 3 for 4. Dalton Bargo came in as a pinch hitter and then went 2 for 2 with a double and 3 runs batted in. Obviously a difficult thing to come off the bench and have that kind of impact. A huge deal there. Good on Tennessee to even that series and to win a game where, Marcus Phillips wasn't as good as he was last week, and still to come through that game. And Nate Snead got hit around too. I mean, those are 2 of your guys, and they got hit around a little bit. But they did such a good job early against Riley Quick. They kept the pressure on all game long against the Alabama bullpen. Big win there for Tennessee to bounce back and get that done. Richie Bonamolo Jr. on the Alabama side, 2 for 3 with 2 stolen bases. Just such a catalyst at the bottom of the order for Alabama, and that shows you how good that lineup is, that they can put him at the bottom of the order and feel comfortable with it. For Vanderbilt, in a 3-1 win against Texas A&M as the struggles continue for the Aggies, 2 for 3 with 2 doubles. We talked about Vahiva Aloy, 2 for 5 with that walk-off home run, 3 runs batted in. Max Ballou in a losing effort for Texas against LSU, 3 for 4. And Luis Hernandez, a name we haven't said a ton here on this show this season, but 3 for 4 with a home run and 3 runs batted in. And a big win for LSU to get the first win in that road series. Road series in the SEC, no walk in the park, no matter who you're playing, and especially the quality of Texas. All right, let's get out of here. We'll read some comments. Jeffrey Baumgardner says Charles Davalon is a hitting machine. Agreed. Landon Lewis says, how about my Tigers? Yeah, big win there. Especially on the road. Like I said, this is the type of series that even if LSU lost to, you'd be like, okay, road series, top 10 team, like, hey, that's going to happen. But yeah, if you can steal this series, it would, it's huge down the line. Jeffrey Baumgardner says at Arlington, they put a heavy shift on Davalon, so now he hits everything opposite field. I love the adjustment. Jeffrey, that's a great point. I mean, so rare is that in today's game. It's not even that certain hitters can't do it all. That's true. There are hitters that just can't hit opposite the shift, no matter how hard they try. It's oftentimes I feel like it doesn't get taught. Not that it doesn't get taught. It doesn't get emphasized, right? Sometimes the coaches say, hey, I just want them to stay in their approach. And if that means they have to try to hit through a shift, so be it. We don't want to tinker. And I get that as a strategy, but to have a guy like Davalon, it just shows how special he is as a hitter, that not only do they trust him to do that, but he just pulls it off. And it's like, okay, you're going to play me this way. Yep. Okay. I'll just flick it over here. That's just great hitting. And then also a good mentality. I think a lot of hitters try to do too much in that spot and not, they try to do too much rather than just take what the defense is giving them, to use like a football term. So yeah, big stuff there. Spartan King says you couldn't remember if you picked LSU, LOL, the number 1 team. Well, now the number 2 team. in the country. Yeah, but I couldn't remember if I picked them for our weekly picks. It was a road series, so I feel like I had to debate it a little bit, but a big win for them nonetheless. Drink Local Birmingham says Auburn has a home crowd in Lexington. Yeah, I talked about that on yesterday's show. Auburn men's basketball is playing at Rupp Arena tonight, Saturday. So Auburn fans had the night off last night if they were already in town, having been to Thursday's game. So yeah, a lot of Auburn fans in the house there at Kentucky Proud Park. Dave says Noah Sullivan for the all mustache team. I will second that motion. The motion is going to pass, I'm sure. I'm with you on that. I'm always on the lookout for good mustaches. So thank you, Dave, for that reminder on Noah Sullivan. Daniel Ordoin says LSU is going to win 95% of their games if the staff gives you 10 walks with no K or 10 Ks with no walks. Agreed. Yeah, I mean we'll talk about the pitching performance here in a second, but yeah, that's in this league, that's huge. I mean, just ask Georgia. That's part of the crux of Georgia's issues is the free passes, and there's a reason why it seems like even before SEC play, Georgia was constantly in these like tight games, and then they're winning them. So kudos, but that's a stressful way to live, man. And so yeah, to not give those free passes is huge. Goes without saying. Oh boy, Sean Miller, this is going to be something cheeky. I just know it. Need to see the back end production for Weekend Waypoints. Do you save all your hitter docs or is Saturday written over the Friday doc? These docs must be made public. How do we know there's no conspiracy? And then first, the JFK docs are released. Now Joe's private hitter pitcher worksheets. Thank you, Sean, as always, for that. Very helpful. No, they actually are just, I don't save them. I have one doc titled hitter and one titled pitcher. And every morning when I go in, I just delete the previous days and just start afresh. That's about as high production quality as it's going to get for Weekend Waypoints, but it was better than just me reading off stats at you, which I still read them, but at least you can visually follow along. So there's nothing more than what you see. There's nothing on these docs that is not being seen by you in the public here. All right, let's talk about the game of the day on Saturday. Actually, let me pull up, if you'll pardon me for just a second while I pull up today's schedule, honestly, for myself as much as anyone else here, just to kind of get a feel for game times and stuff. And I'll pull it up here. Sean says, I knew it. It's all rigged. Man, Sean is on me, man. Like he's got me pegged, There's a lot of corruption happening. The hitter and pitcher of the day for sure. All right. Scores. Okay. Beautiful that they're spread out, right? We got a noon start in Gainesville, then a 7 p.m. Eastern start in Austin. Love to see that. Game's nice and spread out. I mean, we have a cluster at 2 and 3, but spread out enough to where you're going to be able to see a lot of SEC baseball today if you're trying to catch as much as you can. The game of the day for me is that Tennessee-Alabama game, that rubber match there. Tennessee officially had a TBA to start the weekend, and if Tony has announced the starter there, if somebody on that beat, Ben McKee or Mike Wilson, somebody, which I know they've got basketball going on the men's and women's side at Tennessee, so a little bit light on the coverage this week. But if they've announced the starter for that one, I've not seen it. Alabama going with Bobby Alcock, who was good last week against A&M. So was that just the A&M of it all, right? Or is it maybe that he found something, right? I think we'll find out some of that this weekend. I suspect, no disrespect to Bobby Alcock, who's a talented pitcher, I suspect it's more the former, and that it was just kind of an A&M thing, and that Tennessee is obviously going to be a much tougher test. But you just got to survive it if you're Bobby Alcock. This is going to be a bullpen game probably regardless on both sides. So you're just going to have to – this is a start where as he goes out there, you just say, hey, big dog, like you're going to give up some hits and some runs here. We just need you to compete and try to get as many outs as you can and give us a chance here. So that should be fun to see how those two teams kind of battle out. I have a feeling it's going to be a scratch and claw kind of game because, as I said, previewing the weekend, I think there's a lot of Sundays when Tennessee is going to run away with series finales, but Alabama's offense is good enough that I think they're going to hang around. Now, how close the game ends up being, we'll see. But I do think they're going to be able to hang around and score enough to keep that game interesting. But obviously, we'll see. A few more comments before we get out of here, including some that make me laugh. Including Carl says Sean is hurting and just lashing out. LOL. I'm with you, Carl. I think Sean, man, like it's all right, it's okay. But I need to come back and say just the A&M of it all. Et tu, Joe. Et tu. Yeah, man. Like they're just. I get asked on every radio hit that I do, like, what's the deal with A&M? And I'm just like, man, if it were that obvious, like Michael Early and the staff would have it fixed by now. And B, maybe I could, if I knew the answer, maybe I could offer my services as a consultant and make some money off of it. But I think it's anybody's guess what is wrong with the offense. But right now, they are kind of an offense where you start to kind of, you look at pitcher stats against them and you start to kind of be like, well, how much can we read into that? Which is just, I mean, if you take a step back, that's incredible. That's where we are with A&M right now, that you have to kind of look at, not throw out the pitching performances against them, but at least apply that context. Like, that's shocking. If you'd have told me that at the start of the season, or if you'd have told me that 3 weeks ago, I would have not believed it at all. And that's where we're at. Drink Local Birmingham says Bama's offense can keep them in it. Agreed. Like, that's my big thing, is that maybe it's baseball. Maybe Tennessee runs away with it, but I don't think so, because I think Alabama's offense is going to keep them hanging around. And if you're the Tide, that's all you ask for, is like, hey man, like, they're obviously really good, but let's hang around. We're good too, and try to win this, scratch and claw to win this game in a bullpen game that might be a little bit ugly. And that's just the reality of Sunday baseball sometimes in this league, as much as any others, given how offensive this league is in. Carl makes a good point. I brought this up before. LSU was in the same position last season. Let's see how it will go for A&M next. That's the only reason I'm still holding on to, like, a little bit of, I don't want to say faith, but a little bit of hope for A&M's season from their standpoint for turning it around, is every year there's at least one team in the SEC that gets off to a brutal start and digs themselves out of it. LSU last year, Tennessee 2 years ago, Ole Miss the year before that. So every year there's a team that does it. And is it A&M this year? Of course, I guess Florida could also be that team. They were kind of that team last year too. But Florida's also off to a slow start. Could be. I think there are a couple of candidates, but it is the reason I'm hanging on to a little bit of thought that A&M could still be something here. Drink Local says, who wins more, Mizzou or A&M? I'll go A&M there. The pitching has still been pretty good, right? We'll look at pitcher of the day here. That's a good segue there. So Justin Lampkin, 7 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. So that'll win you a lot of games in this league. You just got to score enough, and that's been the issue. But Prager's still been pitched pretty well. I mean, yesterday was one of his tougher outings, but on balance, he's pitched well. Pitcher of the day, those Pico Khan against Mississippi State with those 6 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts. Kyson Witherspoon is also on this list as the guy who was opposite Pico Khan, just a tough luck outing there for Witherspoon that you don't get a win out of that. Ian Losey, a pretty solid outing against Ole Miss, gave up 1 earned run in 5 innings pitched. And with the improvements Missouri's had offensively, if they can start to round into form a little bit more on the mound, they're going to be pesky, as they kind of always find a way to be pesky, even when they're not very good. J.D. Thompson of Vanderbilt, 6 1/3 innings, giving up 1 run, no walks. That's the huge part there. Mentioned Lampkin. Zach Root, a bounce-back start for him against South Carolina. Didn't go well last week against Ole Miss. Went well this weekend in his start. 7-inning complete game. Gave up 2 runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. And then the LSU duo of Cade Anderson, 2 runs and 6 innings, no walks, 8 Ks. Zach Cowan out of the bullpen. 3 innings pitched, just 1 hit allowed, no walks, 3 strikeouts. I really like that role for Zach Cowan as a kind of a, hey, let's do 6 and 3, or 5 and 3, and then maybe we have to bring in someone else for 1 inning at the back end. But a guy who can give you multiple innings, a guy who's been a starter, a guy who's pitched in big games. He doesn't have maybe the stuff of the rest of our staff in a lot of ways, but it's a guy who's experienced and isn't going to be overwhelmed by the moment. So I like that role. And pitching like he did yesterday, it's easy to see why LSU like. So, all right, folks, that is going to do it for this edition of Weekend Waypoints, production of SEC Extra, D1Baseball.com. Thank you all for joining me as always. Thank you for your questions, for the banter, for the fun. That's kind of what I'm looking for every morning, is yeah, we'll chop up the games. We'll get into it. We'll talk some ball. I love doing that as well, but I also love kind of joking around with you guys. That's a whole every weekend morning for me. So enjoy the baseball today. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Sunday's edition of Weekend Waypoints to recap Saturday and get you ready for finales all around the conference. Talk to y'all then.